Hello, welcome to another episode of Engineerability Podcast. We welcome Mr. Imad, who has been joining us from Red Hat. He's the Global Technical Account Management Practice Lead, and he is going to share us the enticing story and give us the insights how well we can, what's the technology behind Red Hat and the leadership and exciting new insights. I'll throw the ball to give the round to Mr. Ahmad, so that he can introduce himself, and then we can move forward with the discussion. Hi, Ahmad.
Thanks,
Ball's over to you.
thanks, thanks a lot for the invitation, Ajmal. Really happy to be with you here in this podcast. Yeah, my name is Imed. I was born and raised in Tunisia in North Africa. I grew up in a very remote village, population less than 100, with lots of farm animals. We had a lot more animals than humans, actually. So for some reason, I got interested in computers in that very unlikely environment. One thing led to another. I ended up falling in love with the Unix, Linux, open source, and landed in Red Hat. Today, I'm running the global technical account management practice at the company. I've been with Red Hat for 15 years. Prior to that, I worked in four continents. Actually, I keep telling people that I hold four driving licenses from four continents. Yeah, thanks again for having me.
That is a pleasure having you. We'll move forward with the career journey which you have actually held. You are working as an amazing position of global TAM leader, practice lead. How do you see what is it like to be in Red Hat, and what's your uh, exciting story about Red Hat, especially the
Well,
ground realities of your responsibilities?
the company, I mean, we've been in business for almost 30 years. It was one of the very first crazy ideas to make money out of open source. At the time, nobody thought it was possible. Red Hat and very few other companies, in a sense, dared trying that. Today, I think with all pride, I think it's a resounding success. Open source did work, in a sense, as a professional business model. Um, uh, I remember when I was in university in the 90s, like I mentioned earlier, very first, I fell in love with Unix, meaning I discovered Unix and I said, okay, this is a proper system that can run a business, because everything else was, meaning it was the era of Commodore 64, Sacher, MSX, and the likes. And they thought, okay, this is a toy. Meaning you cannot run a shipping company or an airline or anything serious on things like that. So when I discovered the first Unix systems in university, I thought, okay, this is real computing. However, it was completely out of reach. I did not even think of acquiring that, meaning the prices were way beyond the means of regular mortals, and let alone someone who comes from very poor background like myself. Very quickly, I ran into a CD with the Linux. Those of you who have been around that time probably remember that there's some
Hmm.
magazines used to ship, or books used to ship with Linux CDs. I installed it, and then I thought, okay, I couldn't look back, if you will. I removed my last Windows partition in February 1997, and since I've been like an exclusive Linux user. At the time, uh, I was subject of mockery to a degree. Many people remember this is the rise of Visual Basic. This is Windows 95, Windows becoming like the first graphical operating system from Microsoft. It was like spreading like fire. Nobody thought that Unix or anything like it had any future. I actually didn't care about the future. I cared about the technology. I love the technology. I thought this is something accessible. I love the fact that any human on the planet can access this, can run it, and they found that uh, extremely important in a way. I thought this is a technology that can allow anybody in the company, no, anybody in the world to have access to extremely robust, extremely advanced technology. So this is what I'm going to pursue. And for that, for me, especially for my background, it resonated a lot. I mean, I didn't maybe elaborate more in the beginning, but until age 21, I didn't have electricity, meaning our village was not connected to the electricity grid. So you see how difficult it was to access technology. So thinking of acquiring a computer was not even uh, so when I discovered that open source allows humans equally to access technology and to excel in it, as I told you, I instantly fell in love with it. Things went in a sense I did not plan for it. I did not maybe influence it, but Linux started to be taken seriously around the late 90s when they saw Intel, Oracle, IBM investing in companies like Red Hat and similar ones. And then I think gradually we ended up in a situation today that pretty much every startup is an open source company. I mean, we are
I
no
got you.
longer in a position where we have to justify ourselves. It's the obvious thing in a way. Well, and we won, Mr. Ajmal.
Yes, definitely. It is, I mean, open source is a part of your life every day. In your business circles, Kubernetes has, impacted a lot. Microservice, introduction of microservices. I mean, there are lots of things which we just use it, connect it, and, push it, deploy it. Of course, that is a really exciting journey which you have actually mentioned, and I love it, especially where you have. Recently, I saw your post where you were actually uh, going through the kids to let them teach. I mean, you were teaching them new technological stuff, and that is part of the circle where you are actually giving back to the community. And that is amazing. Secondly, we'll have, we understand that the customer satisfaction or the customer success is a crucial part of the business. And how do you see, from your role, what is very important for the customer success? How do you see the customer success as a part of, real success? I mean, what's your point of view?
Yeah, this is actually a very important point. It took me a few years to realize that. As like a hardcore engineer, like I mentioned, I was caring only about the technology. I loved the technology, but that was like a purposeless relationship, if you will. Meaning, I loved the technology because I liked it and I saw the potential. Over the years, I realized that if what you do is not useful to the community, then it doesn't matter how great you are, how smart you are, how skillful you are. We have I come from an Islamic tradition, and there is like a rule that says, uh, uh, meaning God, we seek refuge to God from a knowledge that's useless. Yeah. إِنَّا
True.
نَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ عِلْمٍ لَا يَنْفَعُ. So, and it can be any knowledge. You can be, in a sense, the smartest doctor. If you are not curing people, then, well, the world doesn't care about you. I mean, you can be smart as much and as skillful as you want in your home, and no, you are as good as, I don't know, a lantern. Not even a lantern. Maybe can maybe illuminate people, but even less useful than a lantern. Um, so especially through this role, in a sense, I started inside Red Hat in functions around technical support, technical account management, where we made sure that customers can turn their investment with Red Hat, the technology they acquired, into solvers of business problems. Because, nobody invests $1 million in technology for the sake of acquiring technology. They invest in technology because they have business problems to solve. And if the technology does not solve a business problem, then it's useless. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, open source this or that, or what your brand name is behind you. For us at Red Hat, it's doubly more important because we are a subscription business, meaning that if a customer subscribes to our sort of services and software subscriptions, if at the end of the year realize that, well, they didn't achieve their business objectives, well, the natural reaction is not to renew. And that's the loss of business for us. So it's extremely important, especially for the subscription model, that customers are successful. Like a typical organization, this is what we do usually. Usually we try to figure out, guess, understand, or get an explicit statement from the customer. Something like in the very beginning of delivering the service, we ask if we meet again in 12 months from now to review what we have done together, what would make you happy? What do you want to see? What would make you say, yes, it was a great decision to go with Red Hat. It was money well spent. I would like to work with you again. That's in a sense the end state that we aspire to achieve. Yeah.
That's a great insight. I mean, that's the secret sauce of the customer success journey. Now we see that IBM has actually acquired Red Hat. I want to understand how have you been, and you have been an open source advocate. We see the landscape of open source has been evolving, and and over the years, and we want to understand over the years what the future holds for the open source and what do you see the new technology. I mean, let's finish this question in the sense that how do you see this open source evolving?
Yeah. So, well, IBM, in a sense, has been like a very strong sort of open source advocate, at least for Linux, meaning they believed in the model very early on, more than 20 years ago. I remember some series of ads. You probably recall them in the early like 2000s. Some very emotional advertisement series from IBM about Linux. And Linux was not an IBM product, but still, and for us, the open source community, for the first time, we see a professional advertisement, if you will, going on like very large networks, TV networks. It was very touching in a way. So with the acquisition, I think the commitment to open source continued, was even stronger. And anyway, nobody can imagine Red Hat outside of the open source model. It worked so well for us, if you will. I think as we go, we are already there, if you will, meaning like I mentioned earlier, it's very hard to think that someone can build a new technology, say a data center or a new company or new technology platform without open source. It's the default, if you will. It's a lot easier to build everything around open source rather than building everything around proprietary software these days. It's the model, the default is into open source. And I think this trend will continue because it's working so well in a way. And meaning there are more reasons to do more open source than reasons to do less open source. And like I mentioned earlier, in a way, technology is getting commoditized. In a way, the end users care less about. Remember what happened with the IBM PC, like the computer. We are in a model or in a world where people do not care much whether their systems are running on Dell servers, Lenovo servers, HP servers. Nobody really asks, if you will. So, and I think we are heading into that direction where, in a way, the open source will become the default platform, the default set of tools, and customers and end users will care about the outcomes. And because it's a lot easier to deliver these outcomes in a model where you are free to innovate, where you are less crippled by licensing, legal, like documents and things like that, I think it's the natural path that more developers, more infrastructure organizations will end up following it.
Mm, that is very exciting. I mean, that's insight to the whole open source architect. Heading over to Arsalan, if you might have your own questions.
Sure. Sure. I think it has been great listening to to Ahmed on his career journey, the role he holds at Red Hat, the discussion of what do you call open source advocacy. Let's shift the discussion a little bit on I understand Ahmed has held responsibilities from the technical perspective. He has grown over the years to held the position of leadership role, right? So and definitely it's not easy at all, right? To maintain to transition to move from the technical perspective to the leadership role. It's definitely not easy, right? But we want to understand what is the magical way, Imad, for yourself, like how do you balance these two aspects in your current role?
Yeah, this is actually a very important point. I mean, because that switch is not obvious, meaning uh, the thing, especially in our role, I mean, for technical account managers, when we hire in technology or, well, in business in general, you have two extremes. You have the geeks who are very comfortable with computers, but usually avoid human interactions. I mean, and you have the other end of the spectrum, people who are very pleasant to talk to, very sociable, very like extrovert, if you will. And usually they're not into technology that much. So finding a profile which is like both, like strong with technology but comfortable talking to people is not obvious. And in our job, we have to be both. You need to be good with technology and also good with people. Because, meaning after now, well, maybe 25 years of experience, I realized that technology is actually not the problem. I mean, it's with enough brain power, you can always solve technology problem. The challenge is with humans. It's us humans who are like the much more difficult and more complex machines, if you will. Now, so knowing how to navigate a difficult situation, and especially we have been in like countless crisis situations. I mean, think of it. I mean, you get a call from like a bank where their core banking system is down and nothing can happen, or an airline company telling you that the runway scheduling application is down and no planes can take off, no planes can land, and traffic is hovering on. They're extremely stressful situations. And if you don't keep your cool in a way to think like an engineer, to solve the problem in a method, in a procedural way, then you get everyone will fail. So that engineer, in a sense, who maintains their cool, understanding the human pressure that basically a customer is under, but also keeps their cold hands to think reasonably, to solve a technical problem, that balance is extremely important. So to go back to your question regarding that transfer, in a sense, from sort of technology into leadership, I used to call myself in university a problem-solving machine in a way, meaning I used to get assignments and solve them in like the most effective way and be proud of it. But when I went to the industry, when I discovered that, well, that customers didn't care, if you will, meaning what they cared about is how useful I was to their business, if you will, meaning the fact that I was the one who can solve like a theoretical problem that nobody cared about in the shortest number of lines, and meaning that my program runs the fastest using the least memory. Hey, customers really were not there to listen to that. So in a sense, moving into delivering value to customers, that was the first lesson. And then throughout my career, I remember that once you have done that so much, and you will like repeatedly, it's no longer exciting in a way. It's no longer something that fuels your passion or say, okay, I want to take to do it again. And you start thinking, okay, how do I transfer this to others? How can I get others, in a sense, to reach the same level of comfort doing this as myself? And then the company, it was a natural transition. Basically, my manager at the time asked me, well, the team, uh, when they landed in Red Hat in the region in 2012, I was the only one. And then basically I had worked with our colleagues to grow the business. We got to the point where we needed to grow the team. So I was asked to lead the team. And that was an interesting way because when you see a problem, it's very easy to solve it yourself. You know, the saying goes that if you want a problem to solve, to be something to be done well, do it yourself. And it's true. So stepping back and making sure that things are done by others through enablement, through support, through education, through encouragement, required some self-control, some self-discipline. It worked amazingly well. I'm extremely proud of the team I worked with. I saw some people coming and, well, being very frustrated in the beginning, and then a couple of years later, winning awards and being like champions of the company. I was so proud. It made me so proud of that. So yeah, but I understand, meaning making that switch from a pure technologist into a leader who looks at how to turn technology into uh, like solvers of business problems, how to work with a team rather than do things themselves. It takes some effort. Yeah.
I think that's a great, the way you have summarized it, it goes to the heart or the core statement, which is you started with the narration, which is definitely humans are one of the complex machines, definitely, and the only can understand the complexity of how we think, how we process, how do we interact with each other is by empowering the others. Let them take the decision, let them take the ownership, and be accountable of anything they're doing. And they need not have to be guide. They have to be guided, but we need not have to interfere in their decision. Let them take the decision and fail and learn from it. From that part of it. And if I were to connect and connect the technical and the leadership, the way you have described it, the bridge between the technical and the leadership is more towards how the commonness of how both the parties can provide the value to the customer at the end of the day, right? That's the bottom line. And having said that, if I were to take the pivot point of our statement, which is that humans are one of the complex machines. Now, the other follow-up question is, uh, as we move across to the advent of AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, and we connect how complex we are as a machine and how far are we, what do you think, how far are we from the new inflection point, how AGI can superimpose as how we behave, or it becomes a co-pilot for us?
Mhm. Um, well, it's very difficult to predict the future. In my opinion, artificial intelligence or not artificial intelligence, it's an invention of man in a way. I mean, we people said that about the internet, about electricity, that well, the whole world will be different at the advent of the industrial revolution. We will all die. Nobody will have a job, and then so it's something that will change the way we work, the way we solve problems, certainly. But, well, we will have to adjust to it, just like we adjusted to lots of major changes, inflection points, like you said, in the past. Meaning, who thought, meaning that, if you see the way we do business today, think of it like maybe 40 or 50 years ago, we didn't have the internet. I mean, think of a world without the internet. Well, it existed and it thrived and people lived happy. Internet came, people didn't die. Of course, some people maybe they lost their jobs, needed to train in something else. Certain technologies became obsolete, but other technologies replaced them. Uh, I think it will be just another iteration in the advent of human technology, uh, like uh, like many others in the past.
In fact, I would say before the advent of internet, probably I think definitely it is very debatable and long discussion can definitely happen on this topic. Now that's something that definitely confuses all of us. Were humans more happier before the advent of internet? They were, before they came into the technology space, or is it after the technology space they are more happy because they are more connected? That opens up more questions that needs to be answered. But that's a good one, right? As a wrap up question, as a wrap up session, uh, two further questions. What is your favorite? Who's your favorite personality that you're inspired by?
Um, So, okay, without making this very religious, but it still touches Imam Ali. Imam Ali is very inspiring in a way, meaning the level of wisdom, the courage, and the integrity is impressive. I mean, it's something that people have to aspire to, and given the circumstances, in a way, I mean, if you read his biography, his life, his quotes, it's something that I think one can, uh, well, learn a lot in a way from him. Yeah.
Good one. And the last question that we have is, what is your favorite book favorite book that have helped you, with your experience or through your career journey that you take along with you?
Book. There is a book by Jared Diamond. It's one in a sense that one of these books that in a sense meaning gave us an idea about how societies evolve, basically. It answers the question how societies evolve and why certain societies form and evolve in a certain way, why certain societies collapse in a way.
Oh, I
It was
see.
one, it was one of these books in a way that was like
Mm,
like mind like boggling in a way that it has nothing to do with race, for example, and things like that.
Good one. Thanks, Imad. Ajmal, I'll let you take it from here.
Uh, it was a pleasure having you, Imad, and see you again.
Thanks a lot,
You,
gentlemen.
thank you.